It's the last business day of the week. This is Business Incorporated coming to you live from Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you for joining us. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago. On the program today, Barclays Africa challenges findings on South Africa's apartheid era bailout. The International Monetary Fund approves a second loan installment worth $1.25 billion for Egypt. Plus, consumer price inflation in Ivory Coast climbs to 1.6% year-on-year in June from deflation of minus 0.4% in May. Let's get started now with markets in Africa. And here in Nigeria, the NSE index broke the positive trend recorded since this week to trade low at intraday, down 0.09%. With integrated energy trader Oando Nigeria PLC shedding 8 kobo off its share price after the news that the oil company has come under a comprehensive investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission over payment made in June in 2014 to acquire the oil production assets of ConocoPhillips in Nigeria. And Nigerian banks are also seeking Etisalat to Nigeria now 9 mobile cash flow clarity before results. Now in South Africa, the market is in the green, up 0.12%. However, the market in Egypt is closed today for the weekend, but was up 0.97% on Thursday. Kenya closed up 0.28% on Thursday. In the Middle East, markets are also closed today for the weekend, but stocks advanced on Thursday, with Qatar leading the way as investors turned positive on financial earnings and also took heart from U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen's overnight comments hint of more gradual monetary tightening. Financial and property stocks were leading gainers across the region's stock markets, with the Qatari index at its highest since Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates and Egypt cut diplomatic ties and severed transport links with Qatar in early June. Qatar stocks closed up 2.04%, led by Qatar National Bank, 4.9% gain and a 7.9% jump for Qatar Electricity and Water Corporation. Investors are gearing up for Saudi earnings that are chaired by higher than expected dividend announcements from banks such as Bank Saudi Fransi and Al Rajih Banking and Investment. Our Saudi index was up 0.09%. In Dubai, property developers and financials pushed the index 1.23% higher, with Damak Properties up 4.7%. Abu Dhabi's index gained the most, up 2.46%, with the Union National Bank up 2.8% after its second quarter net profit rose by almost 7%, beating analysts' forecasts. In Europe, investors are looking ahead to earnings reports from Wall Street banks and monitored developments from a meeting between the French and U.S. president. Let's bring in Janelle Dumalon, by my colleague in Frankfurt, to give us the details. Hello, Janelle. Good afternoon. Thank God it's Friday. Thank you for joining us. Well, Janelle, French President Emmanuel Macron and U.S. President Donald Trump are celebrating the Bastille Day in a meeting which is hoped will reset the relationship between the two leaders. Now, is this meeting moving the market's needles?
Well, it is, but not just in the immediate sense. Also, perhaps more sustainably, the U.S.-France connection will prove significant for the world economy. Now, Macron is turning out to be the so-called Trump whisperer here in Europe. I've heard that repeated several times at a time where Germany's Angela Merkel is not seen to be particularly enjoying harmonious relations with Trump. Now, Macron has control over the National Assembly, and he has a big agenda before him in terms of pushing through social, tax and economic reforms. And if he does manage this, then France is set to become a much more powerful economic force to be reckoned with than it is now. And against the backdrop of an impending Brexit, Paris could soon beat out London to become a banking and financial center. And that is something that would be very important for the US, and it has to maintain as good relations with France as possible in this sense.
Now, General, the graph behind you is showing that the DAX is sharply high at this moment. Just wondering what's moving that index. However, major U.S. banks like Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, and Wells Fargo will release second quarter results today. Now, what should investors and traders look for in their earnings? And these earnings report also part of what is driving the index we're seeing then right now.
Well, that's very interesting. We've been hearing so far that volatility has been quite low this quarter, and that certainly led to more muted trading, especially in the fixed income and equity markets. And as we've already seen some results come out from JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup. So if you'd like to go through with them with me, JP Morgan Chase, they posted second quarter earnings that beat expectations. They had revenue also of $26.41 billion versus the 24.96 billion that Wall Street had expected. Wells Fargo and Co. released revenue of over 22.2 billion, and that's consistent to last year's levels. Citigroup had earnings of 1.28 a share versus $1.21 a share, so that has beat Wall Street estimates as well. So overall, largely positive from the banking sector there.
And the quarterly earnings season continues next week. Walk us through what we are likely to see.
Definitely a busy earnings week up ahead. Starting with Monday, we're going to see Netflix and BlackRock release their earnings. And on Tuesday, we're going to see Bank of America, followed by another bank the next day, Morgan Stanley. So there's definitely a lot of results for investors to chew on in the next week.
We'll sure keep our eyes on those earnings reports for next week. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of the day and, of course, your weekend, Janelle. We'll move on now to the U.S., where the stock index futures pointed to a higher open on Friday morning as traders await the release of corporate earnings and looked to Paris, where President Donald Trump is visiting French President Emmanuel Macron for Bastille Day celebration. Friday will see the release of retail sales and consumer price data, as well as consumer sentiment and business inventory figures. On the earnings front, because Friday marks the official beginning of U.S. earnings season, major banks, Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, and Wells Fargo are scheduled to report before the bell. First Republic Bank, PNC, Financial Services Group are also due to report.